And it's been a while since I've talked about an article from the economicscollapseblog.com. Michael Snyder. I did do one of his the other day on a different website. But, again, I pay attention to things, middle class, shrinking middle class. It is absolutely critical for a country to flourish and to do very well that it has a very large middle class. And ours, unfortunately, is sinking. 15 signs that the middle class in the United States is being systematically destroyed. If your family is really struggling right now, you are far from alone. I've been publishing the Economic Collapse blog for more than 8 years, and all throughout that time, I have seen the middle class in America get smaller and smaller and smaller. It is almost as if we are all playing a really bizarre game of musical chairs, and every month, someone pulls a few more chairs from the game. Yeah, notice it ain't one chair, it's several. Yes, there are some people that have gotten exceedingly wealthy over the past 8 years, and most of the wealth is concentrated in places such as New York, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. But meanwhile, most of the rest of the country has been steadily getting poorer. Just look at Detroit. At one time it had the highest per capita income in the entire nation, and now it is a rotting, decaying war zone basically. Of course, dozens of other formerly great manufacturing cities all over the nation have suffered a similar fate. Since 2001, we have lost more than 70,000 manufacturing facilities and millions of good-paying manufacturing jobs. Those good-paying jobs have been replaced by lower-paying service jobs, and you can't support a middle-class lifestyle on those types of jobs. In order to have a thriving middle class, you need middle-class jobs, and our country is in desperate need for more of those jobs. By the way, McDonald's, I just read, by 2020 or 2022 or something, they're going to pretty much have all self-serve kiosks where you do the orders, and then there'll be just a very few employees in the back getting your stuff for you. You guys want $15 an hour? No problem. We're going to fire half the workforce and then give everybody else a raise and bring in, computerized systems. That's another story. At this point, most American families are living on the edge, and more are falling into poverty with each passing month. The following are 15 signs that the middle class in the U.S. is being systematically destroyed. Number 1, 78 million Americans are participating in the gig economy because full-time jobs just don't pay enough to make ends meet these days. Number 2, in 2011, the average home price was 3.56 times the average yearly salary in the U.S. But by the time 2017 was finished, the average home price was 4.73 times the average yearly salary in the U.S. Let that number sink in. It was 3.56 times the yearly salary just in 2011. Now it's 4.73 times. In 1980, this is number 3, in 1980, the average American worker's debt was 1.96 times larger than his or her monthly salary. Today, that number has ballooned to 5 times. Number 4, in the United States, today, 66% of all jobs pay less than $20 an hour. That's pretty crappy. It's pretty sad. Number 5, 102 million. See, this is why you gotta get your cryptos, man. Get those cryptos. When those suckers go, you won't have to worry about being one of these statistics. Of course, you're gonna have a decent amount. I mean, you're not gonna be able to get a few, and I put $100 in, I'm set for life. We got to be realistic here. But if I was gonna take a gamble, because I only had a little bit of money, I'd put it all in Theta. I'd go all in on Theta. Because if what Michelle White Dove happens, ooh-wee, $100 could turn into $100,000. That's ridiculous. $100 times $1,000 a piece. Wow. That's just hard to even think of that number. That's hard for me to even believe that, but hey. Anyways. Number 5, 102 million working age Americans do not have a job right now. That number is higher than it was at any point during the last recession, by the way. Number 6, earnings for low-skill jobs have stayed very flat for the last 40 years. Number 7, Americans have been spending more money than they make for 28 months in a row. Number 8, in the United States today, The average young adult with student loan debt has a negative net worth. Number 9, at this point, the average American household is nearly $140,000 in debt. Number 10, poverty rates in U.S. suburbs have increased by 50% since 1990. Number 11, almost 51 million U.S. households can't afford basics like rent and food. Number 12, the bottom 40% of all U.S. households bring home just 11.4% of all income. Wow. Number 13, according to the Federal Reserve, 4 out of 10 Americans do not have enough money to cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing the money or selling something they own to get it. That's just sad. I know it's true, but that is just freaking sad. I am a real American. Fight for the right of the 1%. Number 14, 22% of all Americans cannot pay all of their bills in a typical month. That's a little more than 1 out of 5. Number 15, and finally, today, U.S. households are collectively $13.15 trillion in debt. That is a new all-time record. When you think of poverty in America, you probably think of our blighted inner cities, but that is not where poverty is growing the fastest, believe it or not. According to author Scott Allard, it is actually our suburbs where poverty is growing more rapidly than anywhere else. And I remember David was telling me, the guy we went to ECETI with in California. He says it's not uncommon to see RVs, motorhomes, campers parked along street sides, just people are living in them. And even they're not supposed to, and the police could stop you, he's like, they kind of just look the other way. Because what are they going to do with these people? Where are you going to put them? I mean, it's like a convoy down streets. Because they can't afford, and they have full-time jobs, but they can't afford to live there. According to a May report from the Pew Research Center, since 2000, suburban counties have experienced sharper increases in poverty than urban or rural counties. This is consistent with research across the U.S. over the past decade, as well as my own book, Places in Need. This is why tens of millions of square feet of retail space is being closed down, and why formerly great shopping malls all over America now resemble ghost towns. When I was growing up, the shopping mall was the place to be for average middle-class kids. My family was middle class, and virtually everyone that I knew was middle class. In fact, I don't remember any really wealthy or really poor kids in my school at all. But today, most families have little to no financial cushion and are deep in debt. As a result, discretionary income has really dried up, and that means less shopping. So we are on pace for the worst year for store closings in American history, and yet the mainstream media keeps telling us that the economy is in good shape. I mean, you guys heard the latest jobless numbers are phenomenal, right? That is a load of nonsense. The numbers don't lie, and the U.S. economy is never going to be in good shape until the middle class starts growing again. Is there even a solution? Well, the mayor of Stockton, California, I already said this. The mayor of Stockton, California seems convinced that the solution is to just give people free money. Remember that? Michael Tubbs, the 27-year-old mayor of Stockton, California, has a radical plan to combat poverty in his cash-strapped city. A no-strings, guaranteed basic income of $500 a month for its residents. Remember, and the ones that are more likely to shoot people, remember I did the article. More likely to shoot people, that's the one we're going to go after to give the money to. To maybe stop them from shooting other people. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we all just started getting big, fat checks from the government every month? Why didn't somebody think about this before? Of course, the truth is that we simply cannot afford to do that. State and local government debt levels have surged to record highs, and the federal government is now $21 trillion in debt. We are on a path that leads to national suicide, and we desperately need to start living within our means. We have been consuming far more wealth than we have been producing for a very long time, but we have been doing it for so long that many of us now think that this is normal. Meanwhile, our long-term debt problems continue to escalate, and our once thriving middle class continues to shrink. If we continue to do the same things, we will continue to get the same results. And right now, we are in the process of absolutely destroying the greatest economic machine that the world has ever seen. But I will say, our president is trying. He's got a lot of work to do. Take care.